Any business these days, it's any business collecting personal information on people. That could be social security numbers, date of births, any kind of private financial records. They need to be concerned because if a bad guy were to get into their network, potentially they're exposing the personal identifiable information of all those folks, and they're going to end up incurring massive costs for forensically investigating that incident, notifying the victims that they potentially have exposure, and then finally, if plaintiff lawyers get wind of this, they could sustain a future class action lawsuit. Any businesses also who support upstream or downstream business partners, and if they're in the care, custody, control of that business partner's systems or managing their data in any way, they have some exposure there. They also have to demonstrate at some point that they're at least using industry-accepted security and privacy practices. So if they were to have an event, they can at least demonstrate that they took some care and precaution. Some of the common weak spots that we see across all business sectors these days: lack of intrusion detection capabilities. Most businesses, we find, are told about a breach attack and breach of their own network. They don't actually discover it on their own. Once they sustain a breach, if they don't actually detect that breach in a timely manner, plaintiff lawyers are going to cite that in their complaints. Regulators are going to cite that in enforcement actions. Two other common weak spots that we see pretty often are companies failing to patch their server farm in a timely way to prevent a lot of the common exploits. And then we see really a lack of encryption of private information. That is, the personal identifiable information that resides in their database. If it's encrypted, they have some form of safe harbor should they ever have an attack and a breach of their network. We get a call from the client. They're panicked. Sometimes that call comes in with their insurance broker. Usually they get report of the incident, again, from some third party who told them, hey, you suffered a breach of your own network. That third party could be Visa because they discovered some kind of fraudulent patterns. That third party could be a plaintiff lawyer. The other third party that can report a breach to one of our clients is banks, community banks or larger banks. They can detect fraudulent patterns and notify the business, hey, we're seeing these kind of patterns happen. It looks like your network could have been breached. All these customers, these victims have you in common. What happens then is plaintiff lawyers and enforcement and government enforcement agencies will cite your failure to detect and then therefore your failure to notify those victims in a timely way. What typically happens once the customer suffers the event and they notify a vendor like myself of the event, we start to see their incurring costs from minute one. They have to forensically investigate who, what, when, where, and how. How did this event happen? They have to bring in security folks from the outside, oftentimes, to close the hole, to stop the bleeding. The business clients often have to hire counsel to help them interpret state and federal laws so they understand what their duties are to notifying the victims of a breach event. Once they notify the victims of the breach event, then they have to ultimately defend themselves and their lack of care from enforcement actions coming at them from attorney generals, bank lawsuits who are seeking to recoup some of their costs, and ultimately, again, the plaintiff lawyers could be knocking at their door.